The Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the regular monthly board meeting being held on November 14th, 2023. We have a quorum with all members present. Please join me in a moment of silence to observe as you feel appropriate. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag led by sixth grader Austin Willis from Ryan Middle School.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Dr. Nivens, are there any recognitions or awards?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President. We have a little bit of both, so I will turn the microphone over to Ms. Cole-Hamilton.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Nivens, Board of Trustees. Yes, please make your way down for these first rounds of recognitions. This evening, one second. Here we go, yep. This evening, our first recognition is Foster High School senior Adam Gonzalez, who recently earned the Boy Scouts of America Distinguished Conservation Service Award. This recognition is given for outstanding efforts towards natural resource conservation and environmental improvement. To qualify for this award, Adam completed 2 projects throughout this year, including the Chinese tallow and privet for Bioland Conservatory at Arrowwood Preserve and bat housing project for the Houston Parks Board. Adam is the 7th scout to receive this award in the nation and the 2nd scout to receive it within the South Texas region. He will be recognized and receive his award at a ceremony with the Court of Honor for Troop 1631 on December 5th. One more round of applause for Mr. Adam Gonzalez. This fall, more than 350 students from all Lamar CISD high schools have been recognized for national academic achievements by the National Merit Scholarship Program. Lamar CISD had 18 students receive commended status and 6 semifinalists from George Ranch High School, Foster High School, and Fulshire High School. These 6 students will compete for National Merit Scholar finalists in the spring and are here to be recognized this evening. From George Ranch High School, Jake Miller, Jiang Sing Song, and Ryan Skinner. From Foster High School, Lucian Webster, Rayon Al-Nakib. And from Fulshire High School, Brooks Bryant. We want to congratulate all our student scholars, and we're going to get a group photo. Students, can you all get in front of the trustees for a group photo? Here, you can help with for these next. We'll do boys first. Boys first. Next. So this evening, we are proud to recognize both boys and girls water polo for their recent achievements during the 2023 UIL Region 3 6A State Championship. During the state tournament, the Foster High School boys water polo team fell short to the eventual state champions and placed semifinals bronze in their competition. This was the team's second UIL state appearance, and they closed the season 24-7. Both teams are coached by Cassie Parker and assisted by Chris Correjo. But from the boys team, we've got Preston Ikeyan and Logan Ikeyan, Dominic Broga, Hudson Cope, Cade Mendotary, Thomas Carnices, Andrew Colser, Mason Lamont, Tucker LeBeau, Gabriel Lucero, Victor Maldonado, Ethan Molina, Caden Schwartzman, Dylan Sorbell, Tyler Stevens, Tyler White, Joshua Woods, and Elijah Molina. Elijah Molina has also been named to the all-tournament boys team. Everyone, another round of applause for our third-place boys state finalists. All right, boys, we need you to come around from the trustees and duck a little bit, please. Can you just duck down a little bit? There you go. You've got good young knees. Go ahead and squat a little bit for us. There we go. Yes. Are the coaches here? Do we have the coaches? Could the coaches come forward as well, please? There we go. All right, thank you, gentlemen. The reigning champions from the Foster High School girls water polo team made a big splash and won the state championship for the second year in a row. In 2022, the Falcon girls won the first ever sanctioned state high school water polo championship, and the team engraved "Forever the First" on their championship rings. And on October 28th, the Falcons traveled to San Antonio to compete in the finals and ultimately defeated the South Lake Carroll Dragons 11-8 for a back-to-back state title win. Falcons junior Kinley Niles was named MVP of the match with 2 goals, 1 steal, and 4 shots on goals. Foster won 4 matches in the playoffs with a combined 92-12 and outscored opponents 552-118 overall. The ladies completed a 29-1 season. From the girls team, we've got Jasmine Michaela Brown, Kylie Deliria, Mina Dimafiles, Connie Garcia, Alyssa Holtman, Cassidy Jacks, Addison Olson, Emma Woods, Kinley Niles, Claire McKee, and Isabella Salazar. Kinley Niles was selected as the most valuable player, but additionally, Kinley Niles, Claire McKee, and Isabella Salazar have been named to the all-tournament girls team. Congratulations, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we are proud to honor the Fort Bend County Fair Queen, Catherine Tompkins, who's a junior at Fulshire High School, who's considering Texas A&M. There we go. Or Oklahoma State University after high school. Ms. Tompkins was crowned queen out of 10 young ladies, and with the title of queen, Queen Catherine represented the fair during the fair's run, earned $5,000 scholarship, crowns, buckle, life membership, and will serve as the fair ambassador throughout the year. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, swimming, showing her heifers and steers throughout Texas, and mentoring younger exhibitors. Through her love of agriculture, she hopes to make an impact in Fort Bend County for years to come. Queen Catherine is escorted by the Queen Committee member Desiree Zapata this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we present Queen Catherine Tompkins. Thank you. All hail the Queen. Congratulations, Catherine. And while we're talking about the county fair, each year hundreds of Fort Bend County students participate and compete in activities at the Fort Bend County Fair. We would like to recognize a few of our Future Farmers of America students who won top honors as either Grand or Reserve Grand Champion in their respective areas. Students with champion animals are recognized for their ability to select animals based on conformation and genetics, and then couple that with feeding and exercise routines to grow their animals to best meet the needs of the livestock industry. Our Grand Champion and Reserve Champion honorees are Catherine Anders from Lamar Consolidated High School FFA, who was awarded Grand Champion Roaster. And Molly Hubenat from Foster High School FFA was awarded Reserve Champion Swine. Additionally, we are super proud of our FFA students who took home showmanship honors at the Fort Bend County Fair. Showmanship honors recognize those students who may not necessarily have the best animals in terms of conformation, but who have put in the hours to properly train and work with their animals to be able to exhibit them in the best possible way during competition. Ladies and gentlemen, our champion showmen are Ryan Evett from Foster High School, who was awarded Grand Champion Senior Showmanship for Swine. Dayton Castaneda from Foster High School, Junior FFA, received Reserve Champion Junior Showmanship for Lambs. And Hannah Forshee from George Ranch High School, who received Grand Champion Showmanship for Broilers. Is it the one you crossed out? I don't have a picture. Oh. Okay, they said there's one more. Sophia Crescini from George Ranch High School received Grand Champion Showmanship for turkeys. Sorry, Sophia. Another round of applause for all of our students who are recognized this evening. Trustees, that concludes our recognitions. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Nivens, are there any introductions?
No, ma'am, Madam President, there are not.
Okay, we will now have board member reports. Trustees, please keep your comments and reports to 1 to 2 minutes. Anyone? Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I I've been a little busy, but I think we all have. We've all been going everywhere. Since our last board meeting, I was able to partake in some plays and a musical at George Ranch and Foster and Lamar. And again, I'm always impressed with the talent in our district. Of course, we've all been to a lot of sporting events, football, and good luck this Friday to both all Fulshear, Randall, and George Ranch football teams. I did get to go by for a little bit to the pumpkin patch that's created and run by our special education department, and the children just are so happy, and I love how you can make it that it's accessible for all children to enjoy. I did get to go to the induction ceremony for Arredono's Elementary Honor Society. Again, those are always those events that I love, watching parents so excited and proud of their 4th and 5th graders as they get inducted into their little honor society. This weekend, senior serve at Foster High School, and they came all out this year. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed being able to be invited and represent the board, and of course, so is Mr. Welch, and we had a really good time watching all those kids. Really dress up. Thank goodness Halloween was just the week or two before, because they came out in a lot of costumes. And the other thing, of course, was today, and we'll find out more how the golf tournament went for Leaf. But again, thank you to all our sponsors and supporters of Leaf and our tournament. It always, as Ms. Lewis says, it's supporting our kids. And when we get that kind of response from the community, it's heartfelt by us up here to see how much everyone cares about our students. So that's just about it for me. Anybody?
Okay, Dr. Nivens, is there a superintendent report today?
Yes, ma'am. Just briefly, I want to give, again, another special shout out to the back-to-back state champs, water polo from Foster High School. You know, if you follow sports and UIL sports, you know, you become an elite program when you win state back-to-back. I mean, that's the highest, you know, award you can get. And so, you know, I went to watch the game, and those young ladies, man, they are competitors. And so we're gonna have a big celebration for them to make sure that everyone understands that is a big deal. And also, the only thing we did really that I want to bring up is, you know, we took our first inaugural group of superintendent's road trip, college road trip. And so we took 15 students out of state on a college road trip. And I went with them, and so we had a phenomenal time. It was first generation college goers. And so some of the students have not been out of Fort Bend County. And so we were able to give them an experience that they would never forget, and their parents were very thankful, and the students were very thankful. And so 99% of the feedback was extremely positive. And so we will continue to do it every year. And so we'll do it again next year. Different group of students. We want to make sure, you know, everything we do in our district is not for everybody, but everything we do in our district is for somebody. And so, you know, we want to make sure everyone that's watching and listening, you know, if you have children in our school system, we're doing something that they can get connected to. You know, connected students are more successful academically. And so if your child is just coming home after school and they're not going to work and they're just kind of hanging out, you know, let's get them connected. Some kind of club, some kind of something. Get them connected to their school. They can have some teammates, they can have some classmates, they can have some friends. And so they'll be a lot more successful academically as well. So that is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. It's now 6:49 p.m. and we're adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, to discuss personnel, land acquisition, or consultation with our attorney. We're now back in open session. It is 7:25 p.m. Are there any motions to be made?
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2024 duties goals of the superintendent as discussed in closed session.
Okay, motion made by trustee Hotzel. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Hubenek. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, motion passes. Let's see. At this time, we'll take action on the consent agenda. Are there any items that the board would like to pull? No? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the current consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Now call for the vote. All in favor of approving the current consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Let's see. At this time, we'll take action on the action items.
All right, Madam President, first we will have Ms. Cole Hamilton come up to the, that's what I'm waiting on. We'll have Ms. Cole Hamilton come up to the podium.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Nivens, and Board of Trustees. We are opening Tomas High School in the fall of '25, and so we've drafted a high-level timeline of key actions and decisions regarding opening Tomas High School. But in preparation for the opening of our newest high school, the Board of Trustees must determine the grade levels that will attend the campus and establish the attendance zone. And so this evening, that is the item that we are bringing before you for your consideration. So Tomas High School is going to be located in another northern section of Foster. We'll likely pull students who currently attend Foster, but it is intended to relieve Fulshire. So we'll pull students who currently attend Fulshire High School. This summer, we shared this data chart, but we have since updated information to reflect the fact that we've got additional seating opening at our high school campuses. And so what you see now is an updated version of the chart that you saw this summer. It does reflect the new max building capacity. And so traditionally, we open high schools with 2 grade levels, and that's what you see before you today. This is a model of what it could look like to open Tomas with freshmen and sophomores. But however, due to our fast growth and our capacity challenges, we have been considering what it could look like to open a high school with more than 2 grade levels to provide maximum relief. So this chart shows what it would look like to open at 3 grade levels. And trustee, just a reminder, these data points are projections, and therefore they represent estimated enrollment. The red that you're looking at represents a campus that is over its total capacity, meaning the students will not fit in the building nor additional portables. And the orange represents campuses that are utilizing portables, so you're over the building capacity. Opening with 3 grade levels would lower the enrollment at more campuses, and it brings Fulshire out of the orange. And then, of course, trustees, if you were to consider opening Tomas High School with 4 grade levels, naturally it would provide more relief, but this is what that data chart could look like. And so when we talk about opening Tomas High School and potentially opening with 4 classes, we are discussing the current class of sophomores. So this would be the class of 2026. They will be the seniors. And so your grade level options are, we could open Tomas 9th through 10th grade, requiring all 9th through 10th graders to attend, and that represents a traditional high school opening. You may elect to open Tomas with 9th through 12th grade students, requiring all 9th and 12th grade students who reside in that zone to attend, and that's not providing an option to anyone. Those students would have to attend. Of course, you could also elect to open Tomas High School 9th through 12th grade, making it a requirement for the 9th through 11th grade, making it optional for those senior students. In that event, we would not be able to provide transportation. Again, no transportation would be provided for the 12th grade students electing to remain at the original campus. And so trustees, as you consider your decision this evening, we did want to provide you with some additional data points. So this is what the financials will look like if we open with 2, 3, and 4 grade levels. Again, these are preliminary estimates that'll vary based on any options given, changes in assumptions, or variances in salary increases provided before and including the 25-26 fiscal year. Regarding policies, trustees, when our team reviewed current policies that may need to be updated, we identified EIC local, that's the academic achievement, the class rank policy. In this policy, the section about valedictorian and salutatorian states that to be eligible, students must have been continuously enrolled in the same district high school for the 3 semesters immediately preceding graduation. So if Tomas High School opens with seniors, then this policy would need to be updated to allow for vowels and sals at Tomas. And of course, we've had a lot of interest in what happens with UIL opening Tomas. So if Tomas opens with more than 2 grade levels, the campus can participate in everything at the varsity level. We can have a football team, but they would not be eligible for state competition. And when we say UIL, we are including athletics, fine arts, and academic programs and competitions. And so just to clarify, trustees, we are seeking approval for what grade levels will open Tomas High School at this time.
The chart you had, keep going if you would, right there, the blue one.
The blue one?
Yeah. We could also, we can do any variation of this as well. We could provide transportation if we wanted to. We could open with 3 grades, making, there's a big concern in the community about varsity level athletics and competition and transportation. So we're not limited to what's on the screen.
No, sir. You may create any option. However, there are some constraints with transportation. I'll invite my colleague, Mr. Buchanan, up. When we were discussing potential models, we talked about whether or not the district would be able to provide transportation if a certain amount of students did elect to remain. Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Welch, when we start looking at this, because our secondary attendance zones are fairly large, when you start looking at that, you're looking at maybe 4 or 5 buses that maybe only be transporting 8 to 10 students, because they'd be so vast in the geography that they would have to cover to be able to get those students back and forth, and the traffic that they would have to get to. So just because of the logistics that we're having to face now, that was one of the things that we wanted to explore, is not to be able to provide transportation for those seniors because of, if we decided, the board decided to do 9 through 12, because of those logistics that it would impart upon the transportation. But if the board chooses that, then we'll make it work.
Since we have not actually figured out which attendance zones are going, how do we know exactly how many kids we're talking about? For instance, how many 12th graders would there be if we went 12th grade?
So what we have is we have some generic areas that they say through our demographer that says, when you open Tomas, this is the generic zone that you'd be looking at. So what we did was we took their zoning, which is basically off of Bel Air, and coupled that together, and then we used our current PEMS data and extrapolated those out to get the estimates that you currently see by grade level. But it's just an estimate of what the zone could be and an estimate of what students would attend.
I guess my concern is, if we opened with 12th grade with the option to be grandfathered back to their other school with their own transportation, how many kids would not buy into coming to the new school? And would it be worth our doing that when we're trying to work on getting those grades there?
Yes, so to answer the question, if the board decided to make it optional, there would have to be a minimum number of students that would go. And so if only 2 seniors decided to go, then we just wouldn't have any seniors come at all. Because now you have classes and you have a lot of other things you have to have.
That's what I'm saying,
So there's
yeah.
a minimum number of students that will have to attend, that will have to elect to go as a 12th grader before we would decide if that was feasible or not.
Okay.
And so that's why we're doing this, is so if the board, after the board makes a decision, then we will have the communication with the community. And then if, 200 to 300 seniors say, hey, I want to go to Tomas, and then we'll make it work. And then the other students that decide not to go, no transportation will be provided unless the board wanted that. But we also have to understand, we're still 20 bus drivers short. We still have comeback routes. We're still short on bus drivers. And so if we do that, then we just have to make the community aware that students will be getting to school late and getting home late. And so we'll tell them that up front if that's what they decide to do.
Ms. Cole-Hamilton, can you go back to the other chart when we looking at, that one. When we look at the 4 grade, the one with 3 grade levels, if you could go to that. There you go. So Terry High School is going to stay under capacity. That's the projection, at least. Well, I assume the idea is that if we shift Foster and Fulshire, we're going to pull some areas that would possibly go to Lamar right now, and it might, and Terry as well. I mean, that's the thing. You move one piece and other pieces kind of need to move to as well. Is that what everybody's thinking, or are we talking about just Fulshire and Foster High School? Or have we gotten that far with their demographers yet?
For the sake of our mock-up for data, we just looked at that particular area, but in our conversation with other district leaders, we did talk about what would it look like to pull everything up and that would impact more of our high school campuses. That would be something we would determine in the approach to rezoning, and it could be an option.
So when it says decision needed for Lamar, that would be the decision needed? Like, how are we going to re-level or rezone?
The first decision point on the table this evening is determining what grade levels will open Tomas High School. The next item that I'm going to talk through is the approach to rezoning.
Can you go back to the 2 grade levels? Just for sake of comparison, there you go. So if we open in a year and a half from now, Fulshire High School is going to have a capacity of 3,000 students, and they're going to be roughly 3,200, so they're still going to be over.
When Randall was opened, was there any talk about grandfathering students that were in UIL or in sports or anything like that?
It's because we just did the
They
2
only
grades,
had
9th and 10th grade.
Yeah, seems like a lot of the emails coming in are parents that are concerned about their students' sports and orchestra and other.
The last school that went with 3 grade levels was Foster.
Do we have, I mean, we haven't heard public comments tonight. I mean, I'm curious if the public has shown up here and are wanting to speak to the board before we decide this.
Do we know how many varsity athletes we have that are upperclassmen that would possibly be grandfathered in?
We could pull data from Rank 1 and look at that number. When we opened Randall, we did grandfather in, but there were requirements that were set forth in order to do that.
Okay.
Set forth, you mean like you had to be a varsity sports or orchestra or
So like
theater
for our
or band?
individual sports, they had to participate in the district tournament. They couldn't play one golf outing out of the 8 and not participate in the end.
Well, you wouldn't let her if you did that, though, would you? Maybe?
Maybe.
Okay.
So we set forth some requirements for each level and each activity to determine what a varsity athlete was.
And that would be the same for band or theater or any of those other
Yes, ma'am.
UIL? Okay.
I know we're only talking about, or these are just estimated enrollments, but the difference between opening with 3 and 4 grade levels is like, for Foster, it's 19 kids on here, and for Fulshire, it's 159. So I feel like it doesn't offer that much more relief to open 9 through 12th. 9th through 11th makes a lot of sense to me. If we can find a way to grandfather in varsity UIL, I would be for that.
Coach Gabbard, when we let's talk about the pros and cons when we did that for Randall. About what I understand, as far as I got here, what I understand, where there were several concerns and there were some folks like doing some things that we shouldn't have been doing to make sure kids stayed at the campus, didn't go to the campus. Can
Yes,
you
sir,
talk
and
about those?
That's why we set forth certain preset requirements that we had talked about beforehand. It couldn't just be you played in one game. It had to be you were a valuable asset to that varsity team that allowed you to stay and grandfather in.
Was there once upon a time, if you had already lettered in your sport, there was some,
When we opened
with
Fulshire,
Foster, I know
when we
that
opened
was.
Fulshire from Foster, every kid who participated at the varsity level could grandfather in. And that was a lot of kids.
Right. I remember, and then there was some,
And it hurt Fulshear for about 2 years.
yeah. And that happened, I think, when we opened up Foster, and I think when they opened up George Ranch. I mean, every time we open a new school, we have the problem of parents doing some shady things to make sure their kids can stay where they need to stay. So I just want to make sure that we do what's best for not just the students, but for, again, like you said, Dr. Nivens, the overcrowding, and that we're making a difference. And as you said too, is not that big of a difference between 11th and 12th grade. But I guess our question would be, if we decided to go 9 through 11, are we going to do 11 with grandfathered in, or 11 would have to be with no options, except for possibly UIL? Is that what's on the table?
Trustees, we just drafted a few models for you, but you are able to edit or modify these as you see fit. So that's not a model that's here, but it certainly could be modified to say you want to grandfather 11th graders in, or allow them to be grandfathered at current campus.
I just feel like I would be more comfortable doing that if I knew the numbers we were looking at. Because if it's 300, 400, I mean, how many kids are on varsity sports at a school? Do you even ballpark?
They wouldn't just have to be on a varsity sport, they'd have to be going into
Well,
11th
lettered,
grade.
I know,
Yeah.
but I don't
mean,
even know what.
10th grade varsity athletes? Probably not
Yeah,
that many.
I mean, I got an email
I mean,
from
you
a
can,
mom.
but I'm just
usually-
saying the
but
numbers
usually
are
it's
probably
very
not
few.
very high.
I got an email from a mom, though, whose daughter is on varsity swim as a freshman.
Right, but I'm saying the numbers probably aren't very high, I from my experience,
Right.
which is not vast, but, I mean, you know, not a lot of 10th graders are on varsity, but there's some. Or,
I mean, are we talking under 100 kids?
I would think it would be under,
Yeah.
yeah, I would think it would be under 150 to 200 at least.
Are you talking about just juniors?
I'm talking about upperclassmen.
Yeah, that would be going into 11th grade, right?
That upperclassmen that would be given the choice to grandfather in, junior, senior, varsity players, or UIL competitors. Because I feel like if we're going to do it for athletes, we should
yeah.
include orchestra, band,
yeah.
choir.
Mhm.
Well, but again, when you're talking 9th and 10th graders, or 10th graders going into 11th grade, how many 10th graders participated on a varsity level?
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking at, your 10th graders being on. If you did 11th grade, you would have a slew, because you'd have a lot more kids in 11th grade being on varsity level.
My thought is that we open with 2 and giving an option for 11th grade. And then we see if there's enough kids that want to come over to have an 11th grade at Tomas. And that way, it seems like that would be the traditional way we open. Still be a little crowded the first year in some places, but it's not unmanageable.
Fulshear is very crowded. That would still leave us over capacity. I mean, by 200 kids, and they're just continuing to build and add on. I mean, like in the meantime, kids are just piling in. So while it says we'd be at, 2496 with 3 grade levels, that would easily be up to 3,000 within a year. I really believe it. Yeah. And then the other school won't be built for, what, till? I was just saying, the other school in that area, further north, wouldn't be built for another, what, 4 years? Yeah.
Right, it'll be a while.
I mean, that's
before
it.
it's built.
Tomas
It'll be
is
a
the
while
only one to
before-
relieve us for 4
Yeah,
years.
Fulshear High School, other than 1,000 seats, Fulshear High School is not going to get any relief for the next 2 or 3 years, 4 years probably.
This is it.
Is Tomas opening with an orchestra room?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And so trustees, as you're considering your decision this evening, again, if you're thinking of who would be seniors the year that Tomas opens, they're currently sophomores now. And who would be the juniors are currently freshmen now. And I know you're trying to calculate how many of those students are on varsity. So you're talking about current freshmen and current sophomores who would be a junior, senior class to attend the first year of Tomas.
Right. So really, it'd be just freshmen, because if the sophomores would be seniors,
exactly.
If the seniors are optional, then that really doesn't matter. So we're really talking about freshmen that are
freshmen.
on varsity right now or have the potential, or have lettered in varsity right now, freshmen, this year's freshmen.
Seems like making a level optional, like a 12th grade, it seems like that would be more difficult for the district to determine who's going where, what, it just seems, I don't know, very up in the air.
I mean, it'll be a lot of moving parts. That's correct. It'll be a lot of moving parts. The biggest concern I have from administration, from the superintendency, is transportation. Because we're very short on bus drivers, and we still have comeback routes. We still have, issues with that. And so if we want to add on to that, that would be a concern of mine.
Well, I gave my 2 cents. I don't know what anybody else is thinking because no one's really talking, so what do y'all want to do?
Well, my other thing is that 11th and definitely 12th graders, if you give them the option, a lot of them do have they drive. They're, not everybody, but you're having to do the buses definitely for your 10th and 9th and 10th graders.
I think opening 9 through 12 obviously offers the most relief, but opening 9 through 11 still offers a good amount of relief. And when would those kids technically, when would the decision be made if they were grandfathered in? Well, no, so this is opening 25, 26, so we would, when these kids are sophomores, we would be saying yes or no, you're grandfathered in based on.
Well, first we have to do the attendance boundary committee has to decide which kids we're talking about. And then once we know those students, then a lot of times that committee, along with our input, decides at that time what areas, and we usually have some public forum to give us some input about what we need to grandfather in, if there's a certain area or if there's a certain group of students. But until we know exactly which kids we're talking about and which attendance zones are being pulled from Fulshear and Foster, it's kind of hard to know what we're looking at.
No, so I feel like we're making a decision that.
But that helps, though, the attendance boundary committee
To figure out how many.
figure out how many
Yeah.
kids, because then they'll have those numbers from our demographers will know, and the schools will know, okay, from that attendance zone, that's how many of these, this, and this.
So, Ms. Buchanan, how do we come up with these enrollment numbers, these estimates?
So these estimates were based off what PASA had provided, our long-term projections within those planning zones. And then Student Services, our PEIMS department, took those and those extrapolations, because they have certain areas that have certain growth rates, and applied those to those areas to get us these projections.
So we already know what planning zones, basically, we're talking about estimates. So what I'm hearing from you trustees is that you would like, so we know the planning zones already. So what I'm hearing is that you would like to see the actual boundaries? Because because this has quasi the boundaries. So I'm trying to get a feel, so exactly what's the information that you don't have, so you can make the right decision that you want to make.
Is your concern, Jackie, that you don't know how many people would choose to, like if they're going into 11th grade, would choose to stay versus go? Is that what you're saying? But they have to be a varsity UIL competitor, so.
I mean, if we're talking less than 100, then I don't see a problem with it.
It would be, with ninth graders, it would be less than 100 in my head. I'm talking about athletics, but we talk about also band and theater. So I think it'd be less than 100 students.
But it wouldn't be ninth graders, right? It would be 10th, because it would be next year.
Well,
they would be
if
10th
the
graders.
board decides to say we're gonna do 9 through 11 with 12th grade optional, then I'm not including the 10th graders because they would be optional, right? right now. I'm really just saying the ninth graders right now will be 11th grade, and that will be mandated to go. And so I'm thinking about ninth grade right now and their performance in UIL activities. How many of them are on the varsity level or have lettered? And that would be less than 100 students in my head.
Their 10th grade year, lettered their 10th grade year.
But ninth graders can letter also, right?
Right, but
Ninth graders can letter also. We're talking about this year's current ninth
yeah,
graders.
oh, okay, so you're saying 9th and 10th graders?
Because when we open.
Right.
When we open the school, this year's 10th graders will be seniors. And if the board, it sounds like the board is leaning towards, some grade level being optional. So I'd imagine the seniors, the 12th graders will be optional. Those are this year's 10th graders.
I would think that would just add a lot of,
I'm not
Would be
leaning
hard.
towards 12th grade being optional,
I'm not either. I would think 9th through 11th,
9th through 11th,
12th not.
and
There.
Just
varsity.
open ninth through 11th and
9th through 11th
not,
varsity.
no option for seniors.
So 9 through 11, and then
I just think, what senior's
exemptions or
gonna wanna
grandfathered
go?
for UIL.
Yeah, it'd be rare.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What seniors at Fulshire are gonna wanna go to Tomas and go for 1 year?
It would be the senior that wants an opportunity to get on the field or wants an opportunity to participate. The main reason why a lot of people like Lamar CISD for the small town field is because students have an opportunity to participate in the activities they can participate. When you have 5,000 or 6,000 kids in the high school, then you have so many students out there. Like with the email that we all got recently about the one student that didn't make a team, and I think they have all the way down to a C-level team. And so I can see students picking to go because now it's going to give me an opportunity. There's fewer kids for me to compete with. It gives me an opportunity to get connected and participate. So I can see a lot of kids deciding to do that who are not like the star athletes or the
about-
star band kid or the star theater.
How about with class ranking and all of that? That would all
I mean, I
come
can
into
see,
play.
I can see a senior wanting to go for that,
Yeah.
for sure.
But
I
my
was
other
thinking that
concern
too.
is staff. I mean, being able to hire teachers and,
There'll be
just
some
one
that
more
wanna
grade
go to
level
a
that
new
we have to
school.
provide for.
Yeah, we have a system for that. We have a system for leveling, like we do for our students, and we have a system for leveling staff. And so, students follow staff. And so, we would have to decide, principals have to decide, and really at the high school level is very different because now it's not just third grade math. It's Algebra 1 or geometry, which is very, subject specific. So we just have to have a system on how we're going to decide that. But we have a system on how we're going to decide that.
So if we did do 9 through 11 mandatory, basically, and said optional seniors, and very few seniors, we'd have to have a number, correct?
Yes, we have to have a number to make it work.
And if
So-
that didn't work, then those seniors would stay at their original high schools.
Yes, ma'am. We would
And
just say no
then,
seniors at
and then
all.
we just wouldn't worry about it.
Correct.
So basically, what we're opening up by doing the optional 12th grade is asking the public, what do you want? And giving them that option, knowing that it may or may not make. But by not opening up with 12th grade, then we don't have that option. So we're basically giving it back to the community in that sense, or those high schools.
This isn't gonna be our last high school to open, so at what point will we say, okay, we need to set up a local policy to say, this is how we're gonna do it? Because our growth is not gonna slow down, it's not gonna stop, so if we're gonna set a standard and say, okay, because we're gonna have, how many more coming up? So, yeah.
It was supposed to cap out at about 12 high schools. And right now, we're building number 7.
Any other questions? Yep, we do.
So are we just deciding on the grade levels today, and then we can
That's it.
determine the
Well,
grandfathering and all of that another time, or that has to be decided tonight as
No.
well?
That'll be a part of the motion tonight. The motion will be the grade levels with UIL being able to be grandfathered. And then that's a procedural thing that we'll get with the athletic department. We have it already. And so we'll open that up, look at it, and make sure that it's current and that it's relevant. And then we can bring that back to the board as an information item about this is what the criteria is to be grandfathered in. But we would have to be very stringent on that because I can see, I'm an old football coach. And so I can see me thinking of some athletes that I want to keep, and I will find a way to keep them. So we would have to be very strategic about how we're going to do that.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we, as a board, approve Tomas High School to open up with 3 grade levels, with the 4th being optional, and with the ability to grandfather in the UIL athletics and UIL performing arts and all that, for the administration to work out those details there.
Does that work?
Perfect.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So it's all seconds. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Against? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, trustees, so now that we've determined the grade levels to open Tomas, we need for you to determine the approach we'll take to determining the students who will attend that campus. And so this is our timeline for rezoning. You see this evening, we are at the action to determine grade levels and then the rezoning option A or B. You've seen this chart before. This just represents, we pulled these data points using our traditional rezoning method, looking at a map, seeing what attendance zones look like they're in the vicinity, looking at the zip codes, actually. In the summer, we did present an alternative option, option B, which would be a district realignment to address 3 new secondary campuses with a single rezoning plan. It would align 5 elementary feeder campuses per secondary feeder, creating true feeder patterns, and providing advanced communication to impacted communities. We've shared this chart, and this is just a draft of what it could look like if we aligned our elementary campuses to a track. So for the 23 and 24 school years, you see that we still have elementaries that are split track, but the desire is to eventually fully align them so we have no more split tracks. This is what purple and gold would look like. We mocked up what maroon and silver could look like in this model. And then, of course, trustees, we've not determined the color tracks for secondary complexes 7 and 8, but just for the sake of planning, what if we had a green track or an orange track? This is what those tracks could look like in 25 and then 27 when the next secondary complex opens. And so, trustees, to clarify, we're not seeking approval for like this is the attendance zone, merely a sample of what it could look like. And so, option A is our traditional method where we rezone by neighborhoods. Option B is where we rezone by elementary attendance zones.
And view the pros and cons really quick in Walmart language, the difference between option A and option B.
Option A is, again, this is our traditional method. We'll put together an ABC for whatever option. Option B was developed, though, to create advanced communication to our communities, recognizing that we are shifting, we're touching neighborhoods repeatedly. Anytime we are looking at rezoning and or leveling, you know, communities get disrupted and they want to know, well, how does this impact me? This plan will provide communication to those families who are going to be impacted 3 years from now. It also addresses rezoning in one fell swoop, so we don't have to come back and do this again when we get prepared to open the next secondary complex. But for either option, we would still create ABC, we get community feedback regarding potentially impacted areas.
So basically in option B, what it is we can put that online and families will see, if you go back to that one, families can look at in 2027, if my child is at Adolphus, then, you know, this is the high school my kid will be going to. If my kid's at Melton, this is the high school they'll be going to. We can communicate that as far out in advance as possible. So families moving in and families being here can make decisions about where they want to go and what they want to do. Instead of every year, it changes. When we rezone, every year it changes.
Yes, sir.
To the maroon track going out. The only one I see is Hutchinson coming out of the blue track and going to the maroon track.
These are just hypothetical.
It's just hypothetical. We just, yeah, this was with no input from the community, just what it could look like. Certainly, we could take into consideration any other nuances.
But these are on numbers that you've looked at.
Yes, ma'am, yeah, just
So,
based
I mean,
on
you didn't
areas.
just pick up communities
No, this is
and play
based on
with them.
areas and zoning, yes, ma'am.
These are some hardcore numbers that you've been looking at.
And the concept is to be able to let families know as far enough in advance, you know, where their child will, what track they'll be on.
And then communicate that to the community and to our realtors so that
Absolutely.
they will say to them, if, when you buy in this area, come X, Y, Z, this is what,
And to your point, we have on here even campus, elementary 42 is on here, for example, in 2028, just trying to forecast how far out we could go. And this one has, yes, elementary 39 and 40, 41, where they likely would land, so that those families would know where their child would likely attend high school.
Yeah, Board, basically what this does is right now, if you think of Lego blocks, you have the little small Lego blocks and you have the real big ones. It's just changing the size of the Lego block. So by doing it by elementary school attendance zones, you're using bigger blocks to build the same attendance zone versus if you use the traditional method planning zone, using the smaller blocks to build that same planning zone with.
Do we have any of the schools in those areas that have split between two or three color tracks right now? Because we do have like Arredondo in the other part of the district. At least at one time, they were going to 3 different high schools, those kids, so.
Right. So that's, in the first color, like right now, we do have some campuses that are split. Like Phelan goes to red and blue, Beasley, red and silver. So in the first 2 columns, in the green area, those are the campuses that are currently split right now, mostly among the red and blue. And then we've got the purple and gold in the first 2 columns in the green. Those are our campuses that are split depending on where the neighborhood falls. And then the same thing for the maroon and silver.
And it's 3 years in advance? Huh? Well, no, they're saying that if, like, let's say in 2024, my kid's going to Williams Elementary, but what if they're in 2nd grade? You know what I'm saying? And we're saying right now in 2024, they're going to Polly Ryan. But then the next year, we have Williams moved to the Silver Track.
Exactly. So going in, you know your elementary baby will not be a George Ranch High School graduate. You know that your child will eventually be moved to a different area. And it's providing this advance notice to parents so it doesn't feel like a shock to them when their child is eventually reaching high school age.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So we're just deciding this for the Tomas opening right now. We're not making a policy decision for all of Lamar CISD right now. Is that, that's correct? Is it? We're just Tomas.
No, this is district realignment.
This is action, isn't it? This is an action item.
It is an action item, and so just to clarify.
future action, right?
No, this is an action.
item
And
tonight.
rezoning options.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And rezoning options.
And so to clarify, trustee Welch, so to open Tomas, we have 1 or 2 options. We can open like we traditionally do with an ABC, picking the maps, or we have an opportunity, not with just Tomas, but with future campuses to do everything right now. So yes, it addresses Tomas, but it also impacts future openings as well. And then we wouldn't have to come back and determine the attendance zones for our secondary complexes if we went with option B tonight.
So when we're gonna tackle the opening of elementary schools here pretty soon. And well, maybe leveling is the better phrase to use when we talk about some of the Greatwood schools and some of those others. So I'm wondering, how will this impact that decision when we get to that at some point soon? Because some of those schools split, and you guys seem to be saying we're gonna just take the whole school, no matter what the neighborhood, no matter how far out the neighborhoods go that feed into that school, and they're all gonna go to one high school. Where geographically, I can see a few scenarios that might not make sense, so I'm trying to understand.
So what it would allow us to do is when you start grabbing the bigger blocks, is for one, you have elementary school students that attend right now the same school that go to 2 different high schools. They would stay together. The other thing is when you start developing these, making sure that we're utilizing our campuses, it makes sure that the high school is getting the proper feeder through it with the number of students that are coming into it. So it helps control the population of the secondary campuses by the elementary school attendance zone boundaries. So as those attendance zones need to expand or contract, it would do the same thing as the secondary. It would expand or contract the secondary zone to ensure that the secondary zone doesn't become overcrowded, which is some of the things that we're entering now because of, they don't tie together.
So you guys are looking for a decision on this, but we're not putting it in board policy, meaning that if we make this decision tonight, it could be changed on the fly in the future. If we had a carved out neighborhood somewhere is what I'm getting. I guess I'm asking, are we putting something in stone here for the next, 15 years? Are we kind of saying this is how we want to go forward at this point, and this is kind of the general rule?
Right, this how, you can say this is how you want to go forward at this point as a general rule. And then, right now, the board has the option to change board policy.
Sure.
And so even if it was board policy tonight, you could come back next month and say, you know what, we're gonna reconsider. If you have 4 people vote for that, then you can reconsider it. So nothing you do is really etched in stone as long as the board is on one accord about changing it.
Yeah.
And so right now, this is how we're gonna move forward with it. And the reason being, as Mr. Buchanan said, is so we can control that track population and to make sure that we have, equal amount of students in schools and on the tracks. But also, it gives parents the idea and understanding that, if my child is gonna be at, if you go back a slide, my child can be whatever grade right now, but in 2027, my child is gonna be at Arredondo, then I know my child is gonna graduate from, my child's gonna be on the silver track somewhere, then I know my child's gonna graduate from Ramble High School. So it takes away all the multiple tracks. A lot of communication we get is that, my child like stay with their friends, they're split up, they go all these other places. It's hard for us to bring students in from different places to have the camaraderie and the traditions and all those things. And so the whole objective is how can we keep a cohort of students together for the most part, but also let parents know, you're gonna be on this track at this point in time, you're gonna graduate from this school.
So from what I'm seeing is sometimes we have, especially in the purple track and gold track, some of those schools are very overcrowded elementary-wise. So they already know their high schools are going to be overcrowded. So if we can see that coming down the pike, what you're trying to say is, let's move our elementaries around so that they filter better into the high schools so that we have things more evenly balanced, because we know where the growth is. And we know where the slow growth is. And I understand what you're trying to do, but I also understand what you're trying to say too, is that, okay, but then when we try to do our ABC committee for one of the new schools, we know we're pulling kids in, but the parents will know if your child is in this school, this is the high school they'll be part of. So that gives those parents more opportunity and control of what's going to happen with their kids. So, did I explain it okay? I don't know. I'm trying to been so much of, if you live here, you go to this school, neighborhood schools for so many years, which I love. And kids grow up in a neighborhood and they go to school together, but it's not being fair to some high schools to be so overcrowded and other high schools are not, and some elementary schools being overcrowded and some not. That's not, we need to be able to balance that out a little better.
But we still have the ability to shift this as time goes on. I personally like it because when we lived in Cinco Ranch, there were no color tracks. And every year, we had no idea what school we were going to because new schools were being built every year. And so in 5th grade, Scarlett was going to one school, and then by 6th grade, she was going to another. So I like making a truer feeder pattern and kids knowing further in advance. And plus knowing that, okay, I'm graduating 5th grade with all these kids at my school, and we are all going to middle school together. Yeah.
And I think the community would think we already do that. I think the community thinks that we're already operating in this sense. That's probably where, because we use the words color track so many, so that I think that's just an assumption. And so in what we're doing is we're defining that and making it say, okay, this is no longer an assumption, this is what we actually do, or what we could do.
Any further questions? Okay. We need a motion. Anyone?
Well, you make that motion.
You can make that motion.
How do I make it? Okay, I make a motion that that the board uses option B, rezoning by elementary attendance zones. Is that good enough?
Does that work? Okay, do we have a second? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Against? Okay, motion passes. Okay, and we are going to pull item 8B. Table it, sorry, table it. Let's see. Okay, and we will now have reports and presentations on the future action items.
All right, Ms. Hamilton will stay at the podium.
Thank you, team. Okay, so this summer, we talked about our.
Hold on, Ms. Cohen, I'm sorry, hold on. So, board, this is a future action item, so there's no action to be taken tonight. Future action items, so action will be taken next month or whenever the board decides to adopt the action. So, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. There's no action to be taken tonight on this.
Thank you, sir. This summer, we shared with the Board of Trustees our approach to enrollment management to better balance the enrollment across our district. We've got capping and overflowing, which, as you know, we've got some campuses that are capped now, meaning when a campus reaches a capacity, those students then are bused to a neighboring campus or another campus. Another approach is to open with new campuses, with new construction, and then we're going to talk about leveling. And so for our new campuses, with Melton Elementary, Randall Elementary, and Terrell Elementary opening in August of '24, and elementary schools 35 and 36 opening in August of '25, we need to rezone some elementary campuses to create the population of students who will attend these new campuses. And so, trustees, our rezoning objectives and criteria. We use this criteria to guide zoning decisions, and they were established to set standards established in the district's framework for facilities planning. The objectives on the screen are used and considered as much as possible when developing new attendance zones. Administration uses this to create draft plans when we speak with our demographer, and we also share this with the ABC, the Attendance Boundary Committee, for their consideration as well. When we talk about the rezoning and leveling process, it's a multi-step process, and step one does begin with our demographers developing multiple options for consideration. The board will vet and approve for the Attendance Boundary Committee, that's our ABC, to review and provide feedback on. The district will open a survey targeting the areas potentially impacted by rezoning. The district will establish an Attendance Boundary Committee to review and consider survey results and at least 3 options. The committee will rank the options and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. Administration will present the rankings and a recommendation to the board for possible approval, and the board will select and approve zoning plans. A deeper dive into what the ABC committee means, our ABC will provide community and parent involvement in redrawing district boundaries to accommodate new growths or shifts in our student population. Membership of the ABC will consist of at least 2 representatives from each potentially impacted campus. The campus administrator will select the campus representatives, and appropriate central administrators will serve as resources as needed. Trustees representing the district of the impacted areas may appoint up to 2 people to serve on the ABC, and this should be a parent of a student who is or who will be impacted within the next 2 years. So a closer look at our timeline, we met with the leaders of impacted campuses on November 2nd and 3rd, and tonight we have the option for you as a future action item regarding our process and options. Through everything we discussed tonight, trustees, for your awareness, we are potentially impacting up to 20 elementary campuses. So we're going to start with elementary rezoning. I'm going to ask my colleagues to go ahead and pass out our first set of maps. Trustee Box, I want to flag for you, this is your area, so you would be the trustee able to appoint representatives to the ABC. So looking at the first page, the data chart, we are talking about opening Melton, Randall, and Elementary 36. The impacted campuses would be Huggins Elementary, Lindsay Elementary, Tamron Elementary. Again, Melton opens in '24, Randall '24, Elementary 36 opens in '25. Trustees, the colors, red represents a campus that is over capacity. It's over its building capacity and it's over its portable capacity. Orange represents a campus that is over its building capacity but is using portables. And blue represents campuses that are underutilized. They're under capacity. Again, just want to flag that these data points are projections and therefore subject to change. The last chart at the very bottom of the color chart you're looking at is what it would look like if we do not open any elementary schools in this area, and you see all of those campuses would be severely in the red. In addition, as you look through the data points, we did flag for each option which one provides maximum relief. And on this particular chart, option 3 provides maximum relief. At this point, I'm going to bring up my colleague, Mr. Gray Buchanan, to walk us through the maps.
Good evening, Board Trustees. The first map that we want to present to you is our current zone. So this is what the zone looks like for the fall of '23. So this is our current zones that we have, and it should be page number 2. So on the bottom right-hand corner, there is a page number 2 that this has. So this is our Lindsay, Tamaron, Huggins, Morgan area that is currently there. So option number 1 is when Melton would open and Randall would open. What it does impact is it takes Lindsay's attendance zone and it pulls the west portion of Young Ranch, west of Texas Heritage Parkway, and puts it into Melton. There's a small section of Willow Creek Farms that is in the northern section of our district that would be pulled into Melton, and then Jordan Ranch. Everything east of Texas Heritage Parkway would continue to stay at Lindsay Elementary. The southern section, which is Randall Elementary, this section here, which is just west of Texas Heritage Parkway, it is part of Tamaron. These two sections here, along with the triangle section east of Texas Heritage Parkway. Those 3 are currently in the Tamaron neighborhood. The section on the east side is Cross Creek Ranch, along with Cross Creek Ranch that would be adjacent, and that's where the school sits within that neighborhood. So these are our option 1 for that area just for the fall of '24. The reason that we say just for the fall of '24 is if you look on your map, in Cross Creek West is Elementary School 36 that will be opening in the fall of '25. Option 1 for the fall of '25, it would take Tamaron West and shift it into 36 along with Cross Creek West and then Pecan Hill. The other 2 zones that are up here are currently undeveloped. There is a neighborhood that's going in this section, but those are the sections that are there. We did look at this section here, which is Vanbrook, but there is a large number of students within that section, and once we shifted it into 36, the numbers, basically it was full before it ever opened the doors. So that's why that neighborhood in this option continued to stay at Huggins Elementary. So just to put them side by side, this is our current zone and option 1 for the fall of '24. And again, you can see that this section here of Tamaron is, the developers own it, but nobody has any plans. It's not been platted. There's nothing that they're planning on doing with it in the next 3 to 4 years. What we do is we take a small section over here, this section here, which is Tamaron West, if we were to shift it into Randall or to Melton, it puts both of those campuses over capacity the year that it opens. So that's why it stays there, knowing the possibility of it moving the following year to Elementary School 36. So we'd be moving less students through this option. Are there any questions for option 1 before we go to option 2? So option 2, the differences that we changed in this option versus option 1 for the fall of '24 is we left the west side, these 2 sections in Tamaron, west of Texas Heritage Parkway, we left into Tamaron. If you'll notice on the first page of your attendance, the high number for Tamaron, it leaves it high. And that's the reason being is because that section would stay. But we did go to the east side of Tamaron and grab another section of Tamaron. So the 2 triangles right below Tamaron would then shift into Randall Elementary School. Those are the 2 main differences for the fall of '24 for option 2. In doing that, we would, instead of those two sections going to, that's west of Tamaron, going into Randall, which is an option one, it stays in Cross Creek West. So basically, that section of Tamaron, along with Tamaron West and Cross Creek West, would all go into Elementary School 36. So instead of moving those students to Randall, they would stay at Tamaron. Tamaron would continue to have to utilize its portables, but then the following year it would shift. And again, we have our current option to fall of 23 compared to fall of 24 for option 2. And then we have the fall of 24 adjacent to the fall of 25 for option 2. Are there any questions about option 2?
I have a question. So do none of these numbers affect Morgan? I mean, because their boundaries seem to stay the same in every single one.
Yes, ma'am. Morgan does not.
What are the numbers at Morgan? I mean, are we,
Well, all of these numbers that we have in front of you now takes all the cap and overflow and puts them back at their campus. So the Huggins students that are currently at Morgan would go back to Huggins. The Lindsay students that are currently at Morgan go back to Lindsay. The Tamaron students that are currently at Jackson would go back to Tamaron. So this puts all the kids back to their,
so would that leave Morgan at capacity, under capacity, over capacity?
I would have to pull those numbers. I
Okay.
believe it keeps them 800-900, somewhere in that range, but I would have to pull
So
those
their
numbers.
numbers would go down when all of these are?
Some,
right.
yes, ma'am.
Because it
those
looks, I'm
student
just saying,
overflow
because it looks
students-
like their attendance boundary is not changing in any of these maps. so-
No, ma'am. When we start looking at these for the next 4 years, because that's what we're looking at the chart, even just not affecting these, but the sections we're looking at, if you'll notice, all the schools, or some of the schools, go over capacity within 4 years. So by the 27-28 school year, even just affecting these, some of these elementary schools are again going over capacity. And Lindsay, even keeping their attendance zone as tight as we did, we tried to pull more students out of that Lindsay attendance zone to get it back into the building and get it under the 900. It started making Melton go over capacity and having to close it down and back, overflowing back into Lindsay.
And transportation-wise, this helps too, because we're picking up and dropping off closer from neighborhood to a school, correct?
Yes, so in any of the options, if you look at Lindsay, we have to go to the west of Texas Heritage Parkway and then go across to get to Lindsay.
Right.
Versus in any of the options, Melton keeps us having to go across that major thoroughfare.
Right.
So it condenses the zones. Again, once we get these blessed by the board on what options they want, then we can go in and look at transportation to say, what do these walk zones look like? And it may or may not eliminate some 1 or 2 routes in these areas around these brand-new campuses that would be in our current walk zone. So option 3 for the fall of 24, Melton looks very similar. It's exactly like it was in option 1. Option 3 for Randall, it takes option 1 that we currently had, but then goes south of 1093. The neighborhoods that it would affect are Fulshire Run and Bodark Estates are the 2 neighborhoods that it would go south of there to be able to grab more students out of Huggins and take their attendance zone. And then in 36, we would leave, in this option, Van Brook and Pecan Hills would stay at Huggins Elementary School with option 3 for the fall of 25. And then here's our fall of 23 with our fall of 24, option 3. And this is our option 3, fall of 24, next to our fall of 25.
Which one did you say made the best sense for you at this time that you wanted? Because I'm confused.
You said option 3 would provide the most relief.
It provides the most relief. I wouldn't say.
That's what I thought.
None of these options are bad options for us. They're just looking at it and seeing what neighborhoods and how does it affect those campuses long-term. What we did get from our demographers, he said really after the first 4 years, those numbers become less and less reliable just because of the economy. So that's why we went out through the 27, 28 school year, looking at how those numbers would look like within those campuses.
So you're saying option 3 would make the most relief faster, or?
Well, if you'll look at your first page, when you look
Yes.
at it, option 3, the one campus that is over is 36, which is our brand-new campus that we're looking at.
Right.
36 is also located here, Cross Creek West, but again, in this same general area north of 36 is where elementary school 39 is supposed to open in the fall of 27. But we're trying not to go that far out, but that's where it goes, is it's north of 36, along 359 in that area is where 39 is projected to be open in the fall of 27.
Can I ask why you would take Randall and pull it straight down instead of taking people that are further east? It seems like they might be closer to Randall instead of them coming out to Huggins.
Where Randall sits, if I go, this is KDISD.
No, south of 1093, but east, because you have it, Huggins, like, kind of like hugging the Randall bit right there. Like, why wouldn't you take
So this area that's down here
Yeah.
is completely undeveloped. There's nothing in that section.
that's not Westheimer Lakes?
No, ma'am. Westheimer Lakes is
Oh, I see what you're saying.
a lot
Okay, I'm
further
sorry.
east. That is from 359 as it
Gotcha,
intersects
gotcha. Yeah,
1093.
gotcha.
There's
Okay.
nothing in that area, and there's really nothing platted or a development that's being launched in that specific area at this time.
Okay.
So these are the 3 options we're going to present to the ABC
That's correct.
for the public, the
That's correct.
Attendance Boundary Committee.
Yes, sir.
These are 3 options that we would like you to consider, but again, this is a future action item. So again, the board, the board now can ask as many questions as you want to see, just as Trustee Box did. What does this community look like if it's in there? What does this community look like if it's not in there? And so once the board is settled on the 3 options, then those are the 3 options that would go to the ABC.
Now, last time we did this, we allowed the ABC to come back with one modified map, if you remember. Is that still the thinking of
That's
everybody?
at the will of the board, yep.
But we can look at it or not look at it. That's our prerogative.
Yeah, I thought we should have, since we gave them 3, I thought we should have given them 3 options to modify it. But the board at the time chose not to. But that would be still my option, my vote.
What are you saying? I'm sorry.
So we're going to give the ABC, the Public Committee, 3 maps and say, choose one of these. But we're going to give them an option to change one of them to make a 4th option,
Like how they see it.
how they see it. And then what I'm saying is, if they want to modify all 3 of these options and then have the board choose from those 3 that the public has spoken into, I think that's a better representation of the people's voice. As opposed to saying.
Option 1, option 2, and option 3 with
Yeah.
the option to edit.
That's how I think we should do it.
But at what point does the survey come in?
So trustees, for the Milton, Randall, and Elementary 36, the ABC and survey, the survey will launch December 13th through January 5th. And then the ABC meetings will be January 9th and January 11th. That way they have the results from the survey to consider as they have their ABC meeting.
And when I say, when I came, one direction that the trustees gave me when I came, the trustees as a whole gave me was to change that process. Because they said they would get like 25 different maps from the community, and it was very cumbersome, and it was very, very confusing. So the board charged me to come up with a process to change. And so, trustees are elected officials to be the voice of the community. And so we changed the process to the trustees decide what boundaries go, and then the committee ranks those boundaries, but the committee doesn't have the authority to change any of those. And then last year, the board made a decision for the committee to come up with the 4th option, as Trustee Wells said. And so let's just give you some background on how all that came about.
It did become very confusing when we gave them 3 or 4 options and they came back with 22.
Yeah,
and nobody was happy.
That was with the Randall High School rezone.
That's true.
That
But-
wasn't an elementary,
But again, I don't mind giving them some leeway, but there needs to be some parameters.
I think one map sounds fair.
All right, trustees, let's look at Terrell Elementary. My colleague's going to pass around another set of maps for you. Just a reminder, Terrell Elementary opens in 2024, and Elementary 35 opens in 2025. Okay, the trustees that would be impacted and would thus have the ability to appoint people would be Trustee Brunzell, Trustee Box, Trustee Denziger, and Trustee Lambert. So you'll be the.
Can you repeat that? Because we were doing the maps. Can you
Yes,
repeat
yes,
that
sir.
last thing, please?
President Brunzell, Trustee Box, Trustee Danziger, and Trustee Lambert will be the
doing what? We'll be doing what again?
will be the trustees who are able to appoint up to 2 members to join the ABC. So the first data sheet on top of your maps represents the projections for Terrell at Elementary 35. Again, you know, the red, orange, and blue represent the capacity challenges or opportunities for our campuses. These are the data points, these are projections. The bottom option, at the very bottom, lets you know what our elementary schools would look like if we did not open Terrell or 35. So you could see we will be severely in the red. As I stated earlier, we will always flag for you which option provides maximum relief. In this scenario, option 2 will be the one that provides maximum relief. And at this time, Mr. Buchanan is going to come on up and walk us through the options for the Terrell and Elementary 35 opening.
So, Board of Trustees, this is our current fall of '23 attendance zone for Hubenack, Bentley, Adolphus, McNeil. Those are really the 4 campuses that we started to look at. So option 1 for the fall of '24, it would take for Terrell Elementary, Covey Trails, Candela, Westheimer Lakes, and Hidden Lakes would shift into Terrell Elementary School. When we looked at that, if you look at your numbers, this section right here stays the same for all 3 options. The reason being is when we started looking at Horseshoe Ridge, Canyon Gate, or Briscoe Falls, which sit right adjacent to Terrell Elementary School, it put it immediately over capacity. So before the doors ever opened, it was already at 900 students in any combination of those 3. So for option 1, for the fall of '25, Elementary School 35 opens in the fall of '25 alongside the Tomas Secondary Complex itself. It would in turn grab a hold of Horseshoe Ridge, Canyon Gates, Briscoe Falls, Talavera, Lakes of Bella Terra West, which is this small section up above Talavera between it and 1093. It goes down 723 and also grabs Rolling Oaks and Rolling Creek. So that would be this section here. And in this zone, if you'll go back to both of these, when we look at the current to here, it does not impact Hubenack, Adolphus, or McNeil. The only thing that Terrell is doing in option 1, both for the fall of '24 and the fall of '25, it affects Hubenack, but in the fall of '24, it's just affecting Bentley Elementary. Are there any questions about option 1? So in option 2, we started looking at Hubenack being over capacity, seeing is there any way that we could get relief with it. So when we looked at option 2, what it does is Terrell Elementary stays exactly the same. That attendance zone does not change, neither does Bentley in option 1 for the fall of '24. But what it does take is the Club Estates at Parkway Lakes out of Hubenack, and that's the section that's east of 99. And it also takes Lost Creek, which is the northern part of Adolphus. It's that little deal that goes all the way up to 1093, and it shifts all of that over to McNeil Elementary. So by doing that, transportation-wise, one of our choke points is Bel Air, having to get all those students down to Bel Air and then through that major intersection to go to the west side. It would keep those neighborhoods to the east side of that. And if you look at the projections for McNeil Elementary on page 9, it puts it at 900, and it kind of hovers between 900 and 950 at McNeil. It again takes Adolphus down below 1,000, and then Hubenack, once 35 opens, it actually gets back within inside of its building and does not need portables moving forward.
I think those kids were once at McNeil and then pulled out. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look, but I think Lost Creek was once at McNeil.
And I would like to just inform the Board of Trustees, on this map, if you'll notice, elementary school 37, it sits, let me go back. It sits right below that area. It's north of Adolphus. It sits right here. So that opens in the fall of '26. So when you start looking at option 2, when we look at that opening of that school, those kids could end up moving again, but it has the possibility of moving them again in '26. So it would give campuses relief in the fall of '24, but then those students may have to move again in the fall of '26, but that's 2 years from now. We were just trying to create an option of how can we get relief to those campuses that, because Hubenack's been capped for longer than any of the campus we have, is by opening this, how could we possibly get some relief in it as part of the rezoning? So this is option 2 for the fall of '25. It looks very similar to option 1, except for it goes a little further south on 723. This is our current attendance zone compared to option 2 for the fall of '24. And this is the fall of '24 option 2 adjacent to the fall of '25. Are there any questions about option 2? Okay, then we will go to option 3. Option 3 stays the same for Taylor Elementary. We don't affect Adolphus at all, so Lost Creek would stay with Adolphus Elementary, would not have changed those students at all. What it does take is the section east of 99, which is Club Estates at Parkway Lakes, and then the Meadows at Parkway Lakes, and the Grand Meadows at Parkway Lakes, and shifts them out of Hubenack into McNeil. So it is this section, the green section, just to 99. So yes, you would have elementary school attendance. Adolphus cuts it in half in McNeil, but that was another way to try to move the least amount of kids, possibly, when 37 opened in the fall of '26. So we could still get relief to Hubenack for 2 years, but then in the fall of '26, it would affect those neighborhoods, could be, doesn't have to be, but it could possibly affect some of those neighborhoods again in the fall of '26 for rezoning. This is option 3 for 35 for the fall of '25. Again, we just didn't go as far south down 723. Pretty much stays very similar to the options that we've already looked at, the same neighborhoods going into it. This is our current fall of '23 compared to option 3 fall of '24, and option 3 fall of '24 compared to option 3 fall of '25. Are there any questions about option 3?
All right, trustee, for the Terrell and Elementary 35 opening, that survey window would be December 13th through January 5th. Those ABC meetings are tentatively slated for January 8th and January 10th. That way they would have their survey results prior to making a recommendation for the Board of Trustees. And the last item I wanted to flag for you all again would be, again, trustees Box, Bronzell, Danziger, and Lambert would be the ones to appoint people to that ABC. All right,
At what date do you need those?
we do need to establish a due date, and I left that blank. So we need to, I'll look at the timeline and we can see what due date. We need your names to Ms. Johnson, because I am going to provide those names to our principals, so they're not selecting the same people that you all select. I do not have the date at this time. Ready for the next set of maps? All right, let's get them the central Lamar CISD map. So trustees, those first two set of maps talked about rezoning, and that was because we're opening brand-new campuses. The next two sets of maps we are talking about this evening have to do with some opportunities that we have. And when we talk about leveling, again, better balancing enrollment across our district. So we've got two plans. One that addresses the central portion of our district, and then trustees, the other plan will address the southeast portion of our district. We're now going to present the option that addresses the central portion of our district, and this will impact the following trustees: Bronzell, Danziger, Hubenak, Lambert, and Welch. So when we talk about the Central Lamar CISD leveling plan, we are looking at Austin, Frost, Jackson, Long, Pink, Smith, and Travis Elementaries. Trustees, if we do nothing, again, that option at the bottom, we've got several campuses that are underutilized. And so at this time, my colleague, Mr. Buchanan, is going to present some draft maps for your consideration that address leveling in the central part of Lamar CISD.
So this is our current map that we currently have. It is page 18 on your handout. These are our current zones for the fall of '23 for the central part of the district. So when we started looking at this, we created option 1. We'll start from the west side of the district and work our way back to the east. So the first thing that we changed was Jackson Elementary School. So Riverside Terrace sits to the west of Jackson. That section would go to Travis, along with the section east of Jackson, and everything that is south of Avenue H from Jackson would shift into Travis. Then Jackson Elementary School would go north and grab one section of Kingdom Heights, along with what is current, and shift it down south. On this section, if you'll notice the railroad tracks that run east to west through our neighborhood, right now, Riverwood Village sits right here. It currently goes to Long Elementary. So we have to go across the railroad tracks back and forth with those students. So looking at this map, there is a way to be able to get from that neighborhood to Pink and back without having to cross railroad tracks. So we moved that section out of Jane Long and into Pink Elementary. We did take the Brittany Square Apartments and the Briar Stone Apartments, which sits right here. And it may be easier to see on this map. It's this little cube cutout right now. They currently go to Jane Long. What we did was we just put them into Smith. So now Smith Elementary would just continue to take those two apartments along with this section up here. There's not very many students that between Avenue H and the railroad tracks would shift down into Smith. So it made Smith's attendance zone very compact to around Smith. By pulling those sections out of Jane Long, it allowed Jane Long to move up north and east, and it took River's Edge and Rio Vista out of Austin Elementary. Because right now at Austin Elementary, you have to come down there, come up Mason, come back into the neighborhood to get to Austin Elementary instead of coming just south, being able to come to Jane Long. What that allowed us to do by pulling those students out of Austin is to be able to shift Austin north and grab a hold of Pecan Lakes, would shift out of Frost and into Austin. So when you look at the page 17, Frost is the one that is overcrowded. So those are right now where we're monitoring, we have to cap and overflow, they would go to Jackson, is to be able to provide what kind of relief can we provide for Frost. What we have is we have the natural boundary of the Brazos. And currently, right now, there is no other plans besides 723 and Mason to be able to cross the Brazos at any point. So we were looking at ways, how can we rearrange that? And the only two elementary schools that are close enough to be able to cross that, to be able to provide any relief to Frost would be both Austin and Jackson. So that was the methodology we looked at, is what are the closest adjacent elementary schools to provide relief to Frost, because we already have the growth that we have on the north side. So Adolphus is not going to be able to provide it, neither Shubenak on that side of town. So this is our fall of option one, fall of '24 for consideration. Are there any questions about this section?
Does the Pecan Lakes area have that many kids?
Currently, right now, there's 71 students, elementary school students in Pecan Lakes.
Mendola Farm still stays at Jane Long?
Yes, ma'am. To Austin Elementary. Okay, we'll go into option two. Option two is very similar. Jackson stays just the same it was in option one. Travis stays the same. One thing that we left was, instead of moving Riverwood Village, we left it there at Jane Long. Smith, the only thing that we changed is the Richmond House apartments that sit on this loop. It closes in Smith Elementary. We just shifted those out of Jane Long. That's the only change that we did there, along with the Brittany Square and the Briarstone apartment complex. But instead of Rio Vista and River's Edge going into Jane Long, we took them into Pink Elementary. So this would really achieve the same thing as option one did. It would just move less students. Instead of moving two neighborhoods, we would already be moving two. We would just move them once. So instead of moving Riverwood Village and Rio Vista and River's Edge, we would just be moving River's Edge and Rio Vista in this option. Again, Pecan Lakes in this option would currently continue to go to Austin Elementary.
What about Kingdom Heights?
Kingdom Heights, again, the southern section of it still goes into Jackson.
Into Jackson. Did you say all of Kingdom Heights or part of Kingdom Heights?
So they have a section that's right here. You can see it's still under development.
Yeah,
That section would not move.
that would
It's
stay at
only this
Frost.
lower section, and the reason being, in that lower section, there's 219 students just in that small section. So if we move the other section down, Jackson would be over capacity. But as you can see, that 219 coming off of Frost, along with the 71 coming out of Pecan Lakes, that's where Frost really gets its relief, because that's almost 300 students that we're pulling off of Frost Elementary School, and those are the two schools that they'll be shifting into.
So just that little part of Kingdom Heights that's purple would stay?
That would stay at Frost. This lower section, the southern section, would move to Jackson.
So basically, you're kind of splitting up a neighborhood.
So that's where that decision we just made.
We didn't make it though.
But we didn't make it.
We didn't make it.
We did not
We
make
made
it.
anything.
Are there any questions about option one or option two?
And when are we looking to make the final
like
decision with
Kingdom
this? For next year or the following?
We'll go back to our timeline.
For next year.
Probably put that in
Greg, is there a way that we could put, like, on these maps, it would help me personally if it had the neighborhood names on it, like, this is Kingdom Heights, this is Rio Vista. It looks like some areas do, but not all of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
We
you. Just
can
when
do
you
that.
do it next time, that would help a lot.
Or give us a little cheat sheet that says,
Yeah.
we're moving this neighborhood to there,
I'm not
so
great
that
with
we know,
maps.
because I know my area by neighborhoods more than.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We can do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I think someone asked about a timeline. So just to get us back to our timeline, this is what we're looking at right now. In November, we are presenting this as a future action item. In December, the campus principals are going to select people to serve in the ABC and notify them, and in December, we'll bring that to you to approve the committee and also to finalize your decisions on the maps. We'll launch the survey December, January, and then we'll start our ABC meetings for rezoning in January and our ABC meetings for leveling in February, and we hope to be prepared to bring you the rankings for both at the next February board meeting.
Can I ask you what would be on surveys that y'all would send out? I mean, like, just,
I don't
is
have that with
that,
me. I was looking at surveys this morning. So we surveyed the impacted communities. We shared the exact same maps with them, and we asked them, which map do you think will provide the greatest relief for your campus? We asked them to provide their preference with the ranking. So pretty much similar, we try to mirror the conversations that the ABC will have. And so the ABC will at least have the ranking of the impacted community, and we also do offer an open-ended question, open-ended response. So the survey respondents can share any concerns they have regarding the three maps. Now, I will say, one challenge we did run into last time was if the committee develops an additional map, then that's not out for a survey, that didn't get to be put out for a survey for consideration, you see what I'm saying? Because the survey closes and then ABC meets. If the ABC creates another option, that wasn't put back out before the survey for consideration, to the committee for consideration.
Can you tell me again who's on the committees? I know some of us get to appoint people, the campuses get to appoint people.
And that's it.
And
Yes,
that's it.
ma'am.
Okay.
Right, yes, ma'am. And so right now, we've got a form on our website open. Anyone, if they're interested, they can complete that form. I've got that in a spreadsheet, and my next action item is to get that to the principals to say, here are the people who've let the district know they're interested, but certainly right now, we already have parents contacting principals with their specific interests. Either way, the principal will determine who's going to serve to represent the campus. One thing that Mr. Buchanan did, I believe last week or so, is he went and drove the neighborhoods, because some principals said they couldn't tell on the map, well, which neighborhood am I picking parents from? He drove the neighborhoods. We do have a list of the impacted neighborhoods. We're going to give that to the principals so they can use that to cross-reference. In addition, I've asked the principals, when you are selecting a parent, select a parent that's going to be impacted by the decision. So therefore, you wouldn't pick a fifth grade parent. You need to pick a parent of a little who's going to feel the effects of the rezoning. And so when we've got the campus reps, you'll appoint your 2 reps, and then from there, we'll have our ABC. Now, the ABC will vary in size, and we certainly looked at which campuses will feel a greater impact. And this was with feedback from the principals, kind of mirroring Electoral College. Some of the campuses will have more slots on the committee than others, but the requirement is we have at least 2 as the minimum from an impacted campus, but we do have some campuses that have the chance to appoint up to 3 or 4 from their impacted areas because it's multiple neighborhoods. And it wouldn't be fair to have just one parent represent an entire neighborhood. And so we did decide to allot those campuses with a greater impact to have a greater voice.
The only thing I will say, to kind of contradict what you said, some of this moving around will change neighborhoods into different color tracks. So that could change what high school they're going to. And there could be some conversation with those parents. So we need to make sure, if that's coming up, that those parents have that voice. So if you're looking at that, you need to make sure that you get parents that have maybe multiple kids that it's not going to be affecting.
Yes, ma'am. So just to close out that conversation, trustees, so for the central leveling, this survey goes out the same time, December 13th through January 5th, but those meetings will be February 6th and February 8th. So if you're inviting someone to attend, those would be the dates. And we'll put all this in the email for you, but if you want it for tonight, February 6th and 8th would be the ABC meeting for the central Lamar CISD. All right, trustees, the last part of our presentation addresses the southeast portion of the district and will impact the following trustees, Ms. Hotzel and Trustee Welch. My colleagues are passing out our final set of maps this evening. And once again, trustees, if we do nothing, that last section shows that we'll have several campuses that are underutilized. But most importantly, we would have Carter Elementary that would go over capacity if we decide to do nothing in this area. So therefore, this evening, we are presenting some leveling options to address this and better balance the enrollment across our district. And I'm bringing up Mr. Greg Buchanan.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. The first map that we have for you is our current attendance zone for this area of our district. So this is option 1 for the fall of '24 for consideration. It'd probably be easier to put these side by side. So the impacted areas is Campbell Elementary attendance zone would not change. What it would do is it would add River Park, which is just north of 59. Into Campbell. One of the things that developing all these maps, Campbell is the hardest campus for us to logistically get in and out of. So that puts some constraints on these maps. The section of Dickinson Elementary on this one, if you'll look, it comes across 2759 and it picks up Brazos Gates and Brazos Terrace. So those are the two impacted neighborhoods here. In doing this, Hutchinson loses River Park, but then it comes down south of 59 because the Richmond Parkway comes that direction, so it's easier for us to be able to get to Richmond Parkway and head back north. Those impacted neighborhoods are the Sovereign Estates, River Chase, Brazos Village, and Brazos Gardens would all shift north into Hutchinson. What that allows us to do is Williams Elementary Attendance Zone now is allowed to shift across 762 and pick up Barnbrook Plantation and Bridlewood Estates, which are the two neighborhoods that sit here, would shift into Williams Elementary. So this is one of our ways to be able to shift to get those campuses more leveled out, and again, to take neighborhoods off of Carter Elementary. Are there any questions about option 1? Yes, sir.
So going back to the rezoning 2 high schools based upon elementary schools, if we stay with option 1, we're going to take River Park, which is a blue track school going to Lamar High School right now, and they would go to Campbell Elementary, which is a maroon school. And so part of River Park, we would be shifting to from Lamar to George Ranch. Do I have that?
That would be correct, depending on what campuses, what elementary schools would go to what secondary campuses. That is correct.
So this is not just elementary leveling. This is K through 12, pretty much. Because we're changing every level of school
Yes, sir.
based upon it.
When we look at this, if we don't do anything, then George Ranch is going to be severely under capacity because the elementary school feeders that would feed into there are so small. So when you look at the bottom, how they're underutilized, especially Campbell gets under 400 students. So now when it feeds into the maroon track, it doesn't have as many students going into the maroon track secondary schools, so now they become underutilized. So it's a cause and effect in both of these.
I think that's probably news to the public, that we're going to be shifting neighborhoods around all the way through high school in this process. I don't know. I've had a lot of people contact me about, that are elementary parents. And then up in the north part of the district, the Fulsher, Tomas area, about the varsity rezoning. There are a lot of emails about that, but I don't think that anybody in River Park or those other places down where I'm at understand that these are titanic shifts in some people's minds, so I'm glad I'm understanding that now.
Yes, sir. So this is our option 2, and we will put these side by side. When we looked at option 2, it was logistically, how do we get kids into Campbell? So Campbell was the hardest thing for us to logistically get neighborhoods into it. So because it's so deep into Greatwood and there's no really any other access coming from the side, what we did is we shifted everything out of Dickinson except for Greatwood Knoll. So Greatwood Knoll would stay into Dickinson. Every other part of Greatwood that's in Dickinson would shift into Campbell Elementary. By doing that, River Park would then shift down into Dickinson, and then Dickinson would pick up Brazos Terrace, Brazos Gardens, Brazos Village. That's what they would pick up, and it would shift into Dickinson. Along with this option is then Bridlewood Estates would shift into Velasquez, and so would Brazos Lakes, which is down here near the power plant, would shift all the way up to Velasquez. Are there any questions about option 2?
When we appoint parents to these committees, you all said earlier that we need to appoint parents of young elementary kids. Do I understand that right? Why would we not get all levels of school involved in these committees?
Well, historically, when we're looking at our elementary attendance zones, we pull parents from the impacted community, that's elementary parents. Typically, we wouldn't pull fifth grade parents because their children would not be impacted by a decision that would happen the following year as their kids would be moving on to a secondary campus. So just in traditionally how we've done it, we've employed parents who are only at the elementary level with younger students who would likely be impacted by the decisions they're gonna make.
True, but in the past, when we would rezone elementaries, it wouldn't necessarily affect the high school and secondary. So this is a much bigger rezone that we're talking about, or a leveling. So would it not make sense also to bring more parents into this process?
To determine these elementary zones, we did say that when we look at, it for option B, that.
The elementary zones, because of how it affects the high school, like River Park, let's talk about River Park, for instance. So like that option 1, because option 1 is on the table, the River Park folks, this is news to them, that they might shift from Lamar High School to George Ranch High School. So like the 8th grade parents that live in River Park, they're not affected by the Campbell rezone, but they are affected by the George Ranch. And so I'm understanding that, right? Correct?
Yes, because Hutchinson goes to Lamar. So really, this, though, is only affecting possibly Williams and Hutchinson for secondary, right?
So when you look at the map right now, Carter currently goes, this is the Maroon Truck School. So any neighborhood that shifts out of Carter into another Maroon Truck School, it doesn't affect. So all the neighborhoods that currently we're looking at, the only one that we've talked about so far is River Park. It's the only one that affects the secondary feeder pattern.
And so let me get crystal. Trustee Wells, what you're saying is families of 8th grade students that lives in River Park should be a part of the rezoning conversation for the elementary campuses because it's going to impact the high school campus.
So let me give you 2 scenarios and let me ask that same question. So we got a family with just an 8th grader who's in River Park, and we rezone to Campbell. Their 8th grader is still going to go to Lamar High School. Is that correct? The next year.
Well, it depends on the option B layout that we talked about earlier. Remember we talked about the option B layout where we saw all the elementary schools and some would change and some would not to have a true feeder pattern. And so that was the conversation for that. So parents would know in 2027 where my kid is going to go regardless of where they are right now. I'm not sure of that.
But I think you're asking is, if they're an 8th grader today, by 2027, they'll be in high school, will they have to change high schools if their area has changed?
Yes.
Yes, that's possible, but we would have that chart out there so families would know years in advance. Or what would be to come? That was the option B that we talked about.
So there I go back to my other question. Why are we not involving secondary parents in this whole thing,
I see what you mean.
right?
But we are surveying them all, correct?
We are. So what our approach was once we determine the elementary zones and we get that locked in, we talked about creating an ABC to determine what this will look like. This is a draft, but to provide feedback, and this would involve more secondary families as well to determine which elementary schools should align to which secondary track.
This will also affect the Central Lamar, because you have Kingdom Heights that is now at Foster, will go to Terry. River's Edge.
We're ready to go to option 3. So option 3, if you look at the map, and we'll put them side by side. So option 3, what we did was we said, what is the minimum impact that we can have for students and still achieve some sort of leveling? So in this option, there's only 3 occupied neighborhoods and 1 unoccupied neighborhood moving. So in this option, Bondbrook Plantation would go to Campbell. Bridlewood Estates and Brazos Lakes would go to Dickinson. And the one neighborhood that does not have any students in it is this section down here, which is Austin Point, would now shift up into Velasquez. So with this option, it only affects the least amount of students to achieve still some kind of leveling. It doesn't affect River Park in any way. It doesn't affect Hutchinson or Williams at all. The only neighborhoods that are being pulled out of Carter and going into Campbell, Dickinson, and that's it.
But we would not change anything, we wouldn't change anything in Greatwood that would pull Dickinson kids out of Dickinson.
No, ma'am, the current attendance zones, the only thing we would do would be adding Bridlewood Estates into Dickinson, Bondbrook Plantation into Campbell, and then the Brazos Lakes into Dickinson, and that would be it. And again, just a reminder, Board of Trustees, that yellow section down there, that's Austin Point. It doesn't reflect it on here, but in 28 is when Velasquez really starts getting some kids out of that section of the district, like 150, 200 kids a year.
The folks in Bondbrook, which is my area, they would go past Williams Elementary, past Velasquez Elementary, deep into Greatwood to Campbell.
That is correct. And the reason being is there's 274 current students in Bondbrook Plantation. There's a large number of students, and Campbell is the one campus that has the least amount of enrollment at this time. So they were the campus that could absorb the largest neighborhood, still keeping that section together.
I think the option 3 map, it splits Bondbrook, does it not, by Reading Road there?
Well, you have Bondbrook Plantation, which is on that north side, and then you have the other 2 Bondbrooks that are on the south. It doesn't affect those on the other side of Reading. It only affects the east, I guess, northeast section of it, because Reading splits Bondbrook in half. And there's 2 separate neighborhoods on the right, and then there's Bondbrook Plantation on the left. As you're going down Reading, it's only Bondbrook Plantation. The other Bondbrook, 2 neighborhoods, would stay at Carter.
I don't live there, but I know that the folks who live outside of it, who know of it, refer to the whole thing as Bondbrook. So from my purposes, we're splitting Bondbrook in 2,
Yes,
as far
sir.
as where the elementary kids go.
That's correct.
So does some of Bronbrook go to the Silver Track?
No,
No,
They-
they all go to,
they all go to George Ranch.
so that would stay the same.
Yeah.
Are there any questions about option 3?
Is that very far? It looks like some people south of Crab Road would be going to Dickinson and Campbell. It looks far, is it not?
So once you look at Brazos Lakes, which is down here, we have to come up 762 anyway to right here to make a left into Carter. We would just continue to stay straight up 762 into Dickinson. Bridlewood Estates, again, you can come out of it on 762 and come straight up north. Brombrook Plantation, yes, any neighborhood we try to get into Campbell, other than taking all of Greatwood and putting it into it, it's gonna be a challenge. But right now, you're looking at probably 3 or 4 buses is what it would take to get Brombrook Plantation into Campbell. And we just have to route that out.
Why doesn't it make more sense to put Velasquez kids at Campbell, because it's closer, and then move the Bombrook kids into Velasquez?
So some of the things that we're looking at is, what we would have to do to do that is you would have Velasquez in the middle of Dickinson and Campbell's attendance zone. So the neighborhood around Velasquez so you'd have a school with all the neighborhood around it not going to any of it, is what you'd have to do to shift them up north. So these 2 neighborhoods here and here that surround Velasquez so Velasquez wouldn't be servicing any of that. They would be servicing this section and this section down here. Which, we could develop a map if that's what the trustees would like for us to bring back. We can do that.
What about north of Booth? Is that neighborhood developed?
Not
Which one?
really.
North of Booth?
There's one little small neighborhood here, and there's not
Nothing there.
any students currently out there at this time.
I wouldn't mind, I don't know about you, Jackie, but I wouldn't mind seeing that map you just talked about. Because I think for Velasquez, because this is gonna, this is gonna bring out some passion, this whole thing. Some folks, and trust me, a lot of passion from all these different neighborhoods. And I think,
Well, Greatwood, there's only 3 ways, or 4 ways in and out. So logistically, in my head, it just makes sense that Velasquez moves into Greatwood. But I see what you're saying, but I'd still like to see the map.
I can definitely put another option together.
Okay.
Absolutely.
all right.
All right, so just to close out, the Southeast ABC, again, that survey could potentially launch December 13th through to January 5th, and those ABCs would be February 5th and the 7th. And that does officially end the presentation.
You'll have all those dates sent to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So before we move on, trustees, I know that's a lot of information. We've talked about it for several months now. So what I'm gonna send have a proposal on a better way we could present, or a different way we could present this, in addition to how we're gonna do it. And so I'll be sending you an email pretty soon on what that looks like. And we'll have those other maps ready for y'all. So, but we are aware it's a lot of information. And we're also aware, that we're having this conversation, not only having this conversation, but, as we've been doing this, we've all gotten quite a few mean and threatening emails also about the overcrowding in places, And so this is how we attack that. And so we know that it's not going to be pleasant for a whole lot of people. But, we're charged with doing some things. But we do have some schools that are severely over capacity. We have some that are under capacity. And so we know that it's going to be, I'm asking you to do make some challenging decisions, but also there are very few boards in the state of Texas that are doing this work, that have to do this work. And so it's very unique. And so I just want you to recognize that most trustees don't have to make these kind of decisions. But when you're a fast growth district, you do. And so I think you're appointed to this seat at this point in time to make these decisions. But I know they're tough. I know they're hard. Some will applaud you, some will threaten you, and we know that. And so whatever you need us to do to make it better for you to have the information to make the decision you need to make, just let us know. There's very difficult decisions to make. As I said, it's oil and water, right? Logic and emotions are oil and water. So. All right, last thing, trustees, we know this will be easier and a lot more brief, so we wanted to make some easier and brief at the end. So I have Dr. Lazar who Dr. Lazar is back, and Dr. Lazar is a brand-new mother of twin girls.
I am.
Twin girls. And so, and so she's been blowing up our text messages of pictures of babies.
I have. I thought about putting one in the presentation,
Which-
but I.
Very, very precious, very precious. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Lazar now.
All right, good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Nivens. Tonight, my colleague, Dr. Maxwell, and I are going to talk to you about the 2023-2024 District Improvement Plan and the Campus Improvement Plans. So each year, the district and campus improvement plans are created. District and campus leaders review data sources that include things like academics, attendance, discipline, graduation rates, as well as other data points to determine areas of needed improvement. All of these data sources are reviewed to create a comprehensive need assessment. Each campus team utilized their campus-based decision-making committees based on board policy BQB local to review data and ultimately create their improvement plan. These teams consisted of administrators, teachers, parents, community members, and business representatives. I am going to start tonight by talking to you about the district improvement plan creation this year. This year, in March of 2023, 11 subcommittees were formed as a subset of the District Improvement Plan Committee. These improvement plans consisted of curriculum and instruction at the elementary level, curriculum and instruction at the secondary level, pre-K, student programs, discipline, career and technical education, college readiness, special education, safety and security, human resources and employee benefits, and accelerated language programs. These subcommittees had to have at least 6 members and had to include a campus representative. And depending on the committee, this could have been a teacher, counselor, administrator, testing coordinator, or something else, depending on what the committee was. It also had to have a parent, a community member, or a business stakeholder. Each subcommittee elected a chairperson who is also on the overall District Improvement Plan Committee, and this chairperson could not be a director or an executive director. During the March meetings, each subcommittee completed a department campus needs assessment by reviewing relevant data. And from this needs assessment, they developed 3 department goals with performance objectives. The District Improvement Plan Committee then met in April of 2023, and this committee consists of a total of 66 people. It includes elementary, middle, junior high, and high school teachers, administrators, counselors, and support staff from all of the color tracks. It includes parents, community members, and business stakeholders. The subcommittee chairs at this meeting presented their proposed goals to the committee. During the meeting, that was a total of 38 goals that the overall district improvement plan reviewed, with a goal of narrowing it down to between 5 to 8 overall district goals. From this review, 5 themes emerged. Those 5 themes were recruit, retain, and develop staff, teaching and learning with a student focus, safety and security, college and career readiness, and social emotional wellness. Based on the consolidation of the goals from the April District Improvement Plan Committee meeting, some of the subcommittees were then combined. So discipline and safety and security were combined, curriculum and instruction at both the elementary and secondary level, as well as pre-K, were all combined into one. We had college and career readiness, and then some of the ALP and SPED attended several of those meetings to provide input. In June, the District Improvement Plan Committee reconvened where they talked about compliance requirements, and they edited the goals and objectives from the subcommittee meetings, and then from there they voted on them. In September, the district-wide Student Improvement Council reviewed the District Improvement Plan to provide feedback on the plan. And then following the DSIC committee, the DIP committee met again, where they reviewed it and voted on these changes. Following the board meeting tonight, we will meet again on Thursday to review and come up with a final draft that will come to you in December. Since this is a living document, we obviously will meet again in the spring. There will be a mid-year review as well as an end-of-the-year review, and then we will start this process all over again for the 24-25 school year. I'm going to hand it over now to Dr. Maxwell, who will talk to you about the structure.
Thank you, Dr. Lazar. And so what you're seeing, board members, is what it looks like in Plan for Learning for our SMART goals that we ask our campus improvement plan and our district improvement plans to create. SMART goals, just as a reminder, must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so in our platform, this is what the goals will look like. From the SMART goals, our campus teams then had to develop performance objectives as a means of achieving the SMART goals. Under each performance objective, the team then creates the action steps, or what are known as strategies, to work towards meeting those goals. In Plan for Learning, that houses our district improvement plan and campus improvement plan. Inside this platform, the teams upload their documentation of achieving the strategies and ensuring that they are being completed in a timely manner. This is one way that our DIP and our SIPs are monitored throughout the school year. So tonight, we are giving you an overview of the DIP and the SIP process, and all board members will receive access to Plan for Learning to review the DIP and the SIPs on December 1st. Then we will be bringing the SIP and the DIP, the SIPs and the DIP to the board in December for consideration of approval. On a side note, we were scheduled to receive the official accountability results in late September, but that was pushed back to November 17th by TEA. So as the campuses in the district used available data such as STAR scores, local assessments, attendance and discipline data, graduation data, and college career military readiness data for the teams to create their improvement plans. And with that, I'll take, and with Dr. Lazar, any questions? Thank you.
Okay, are there any items on the future consent items agenda that trustees would like to pull for discussion at the December board meeting? No? Are there any future agenda items the board would like to add? Okay, Ms. Johnson, are there any public comments?
If you wish to address the board, you must fill out a card and submit it before the presiding officer calls the meeting to order. While speakers generally have 5 minutes to address the board, the presiding officer may establish an overall time limit for public comment and adjust the time allotted to each speaker when necessary to accommodate a large number of speakers. However, no speaker shall be given less than 1 minute. All of this is in compliance with HB 2840. Tonight, each speaker will have 5 minutes. While the board values hearing from members of the public, trustees may not respond to comments as they are prohibited by law from discussing or deciding any subject that is not on the board's publicly noticed agenda. Speakers having complaints against individual district employees or trustees may only address the board after filing a complaint form and in the manner provided for in Board Policy DGBA Employee Complaints, F&G Student and Parent Complaints, GF Public Complaints. The presiding officer or designee shall determine whether a speaker has filed a complaint according to policy. Any speakers who complain of individual district employees or trustees during public comment will be directed by the presiding officer to stop addressing the board and will refer the speaker to the appropriate complaint policy. Please state your name when you come forward. Our first speaker is JoBeth Prohaska.
Hi, good evening. My name's JoBeth Prohaska. I'm a Greatwood resident of 12 years, and I'm here today to talk about the releveling as it relates to my children who attend Dickinson Elementary. I know that most of you have received a lot of feedback from the parents at Dickinson Elementary based on a lot of, talk in the community that Dickinson will be affected while the other school won't. I also want to address the access issue on Campbell. I'm a real estate developer. Demographics is what I've done for 20 years. Campbell is very accessible. These are city streets. These are not dirt roads to get to this school. Also, the county has condemnation rights, and I assume the school district does as well, for road purposes. And there are a lot of easy fixes to this because I've studied this already. So if that is the barrier to a lower enrollment school, I think that condemnation for road and access should be something that is evaluated. Look, our kids in elementary have all faced issues that none of us faced growing up. My kids had to figure out how to wear masks to school, how to start school during a pandemic. how to drop your kids at the door and never be able to enter the school because you weren't allowed to. I ask today that you please allow our kids to retain stability and not move kids that are at a school that has capacity to another school just for sport. And that has been suggested, that was, shown on a slide. But the sense of community that a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old have is important, especially being that they have, lived some of their short life through a pandemic. Dr. Nivens, you said a little bit ago, students follow staff. And that's the truth. My kids like to get to school early so they can go visit their old teachers and give them hugs. So there's a sense of community, and I really, really just ask of you that you think about this from the perspective of a child that may have to move unnecessarily to a new school just, for really no reason. The kids that are facing overcrowding need to be addressed. The staff needs to be addressed, there's no doubt. There's capacity, there's a fiduciary responsibility I know that you all have, that we're not gonna sell a bunch of bonds and build schools just because nobody wants to change. And I understand that, and I think there's great opportunity here to be able to serve some of these students in a really quick way. I mean, it's very fast. So I think that, I ask you to think about the children and think about a kid who loves her music teacher and loves her PE teacher and loves, going back to see his teacher. Trustee Danziger, I read that you were a first grade teacher. I mean, I have a first grader. She would, her emotionally, she's not developed enough to go, and throw her back and forth to another school. It would really be devastating to a lot of kids. I also asked for transparency through this process. You've gotten a lot of emails from a lot of Dickinson parents because we feel like there has not been as much communication as we would have, liked to have seen. And, we're care about our kids and want to have a fair and equal playing ground. So it's not because we're angry, it's not because we're upset, it's because we want the best for our children, and we feel unnecessary moves are not the best thing for our children. And I would be glad to serve on a committee for any type of access issues that you all feel like we need to find. And River Park used to go to Campbell. So if they have gone to Campbell historically. So that high school thing is an issue, but River Park has gone to Campbell in the past. So, it's a problem, but I think there's a lot of solutions that could keep current kids stabilized and help kids that need to be moved in an efficient manner. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your transparency and looking at this from an equitable standpoint for all the students.
Our next speaker is Chelsea Purifoy.
Good evening, Dr. Nivens and Board of Trustees. My name is Chelsea Purifoy. My husband and I are Greatwood residents, Purifoy, of about 11 years, and we have 2 children attending Dickinson. I've served on the PTO board for 4 years, and I've been president for 1 of those years. So clearly we're here to acknowledge rezoning and leveling process is gonna be super hard and emotional for everybody involved. But we accept the fact that there is a great need to balance student enrollment across the named campuses. It's been an interesting start to the process with a lot of community chatter, but I'm really excited that we're here and we're getting all this great information and we can work together to figure a great solution. I think that I can speak for the majority of Dickinson families that as a school with the capacity to accept more students, we're excited to expand our enrollment to new families. Our concern lies with unnecessarily moving students from a school that isn't at capacity. That's a couple of options where we would stay. I urge the board to consider all sides from the demographers, the AB committee, community surveys, and parent feedback like mine. We willingly accept that change will occur, and we're excited for that. We just want to provide the overcrowded schools with relief using the least amount of disruption to our students as possible. We don't want to drastically split up communities, as many people have stated this evening. So thank you so much for your time and listening.
That is all, Madam President.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. It is 9:30 PM.